Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, on February 15th, the first ever Black Girl Magic Day will be celebrated in New York City at City Hall. Host of the celebration, Council Member Althea Stevens, will share more details later on. Then, owning an electric vehicle can be challenging, especially when living in a major city such as New York City. The deputy editor of Special Projects for Consumer Reports speaks more about these challenges and how to possibly overcome them. After that, the First Tech Fund is dedicated to uplifting low-income students of underrepresented backgrounds in New York City through a one-year leadership enrichment program that provides free tech access and more. We speak with the co-founder and the Alumni Success Coordinator of FTF to learn more about this amazing program. And finally, Girls Right Now breaks down gender, race, and poverty barriers, mentoring the next generation of writers. The community manager and the senior community marketing manager for GWN joins us in studio to tell us more about the amazing work that they do. So stay tuned. All this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, January 16th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. In February 2023, Council Member Althea Stevens passed a resolution that officially acknowledges February 15th as Black Girl Magic Day in the city of New York. This day aims to celebrate and empower current and future generations of Black women and girls. The council member now joins me to discuss what she hopes Black Girl Magic Day will bring to the city of New York. Councilmember Stevens, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited about talking about this topic.
No, I'm excited too. This is like really amazing, and this is the first time that I'm hearing something like this is happening. So can you just talk a little bit more about, Black Girl Magic Day and how it pretty much came to be?
Well, honestly, I have to give credit to my assembly member, Chantel Jackson. Me and her were having a conversation, and she was introducing it at the state level, and we decided that we should do a state and city level. She had some issues at the state level, but we were able to get it past the city level, and it's really about just celebrating women and women of color and Black women specifically. You know, too often Black women don't feel protected, and if we don't celebrate ourselves, then who will? And so really having a day where we can talk about the accomplishments, the things that we want to do, and also thinking about how we're supporting the next generation of women leaders.
Now, what steps brought us to celebrate a day for Black Girl Magic? It has been a term that we've heard for quite some time, and it was generally, meant to just bring about positivity, just in our community. So can you just talk about maybe the steps that, was taken to make sure that we could actually celebrate this day?
I mean, I think about it. It's true. It's about celebrating positive attributes of Black women across the city. And when you hear that, that just became a term of endearment. And it was a lot of hashtags, especially when someone did something well. And that was like our thing. All right, girl, that's Black Girl Magic. And so really talking about all the amazing things that we do and how we continue to defy the odds, right? Like, and thinking about when you think about Black women, I think about the poem Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman? And just going back to the first time I heard that poem and thinking about how even when this country is being created and built, Black women weren't seen as women. We weren't supposed to be dainty. We were not, people weren't opening the doors for us. We were seen as property. And we weren't able to be soft, and we weren't necessarily taught how to be soft, but we were always able to put our magic on whatever we did, whether that was like going into different industries and, coming into politics and all those things, and still be able to hold our own and just being able to consistently overcome. And that's what I think this day is about celebrating.
Now, you're also a part of celebrating Black Girl Magic Day because you're making history, kind of leading the charge of this first ever type of celebration in New York City. So can you just explain, what influenced you to actually lead this charge?
Honestly, I am in this seat and in this role as a council member because so many women helped me, right? And thinking about the sisterhood that I was able to build is really important. And so for me, I think it's an obligation for me to do the same thing and make sure that we are having a network, that we are able to support each other and build each other up. Because honestly, I've been lucky and fortunate because I've had women like the borough president Vanessa Gibson, assembly member Chantel, Diana Ayala, women of color who really were able to surround me, mentor me, support me, in coming to a scary role like this. And so for me, thinking about Black Girl Magic, our first celebration, it's about celebrating all women of the diasporas, because honestly, we all Black women, and thinking about how do we then support each other, move forward each other, and continue to uplift, right? So, it's like, how are we climbing and lifting at the same time?
Now, I love what you mentioned about sisterhood. Could you just talk a little bit more about that, especially in a career that is more stoic, right? When people think, politics or, just anything that had to do with just the government or anything, people think that it's a harsh, work environment. But, you talked about sisterhood and kind of, holding hands and just being with your sister. Can you just expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking about city council right now, we are the first women majority of minority women. And that's a beautiful thing. And just thinking about what we've been able to accomplish in the last 2 years, we were able to get through a maternity health package, right? And thinking about these weren't new, that's not a new issue. That's something that we've been talking about for a number of years, where Black women specifically die at much higher rates during childbirth. And so we were able to pass significant legislation to really kind of combat that, right? We were also did a menstrual package, right? Trying to make sure that women have access to the supplies that they need once a month, and figuring out how do we make sure they have the things that they need. These aren't new issues, but when you have women in charge, we actually lead just differently, to make sure that we're helping everyone. Even when we talk about childcare, right? That is not a woman's issue, that's a family issue. But it took us to be in office to make that an issue and really highlight it. And so, in council, we are a sisterhood. We work together. We're about building and collaborating, because that is what women have to do. We've always had to collaborate. And even when you think about when men are in charge, they always say behind every good man is a great woman. And that's the reality of what it is. And so now we have women who are leading the charge and really leading forward. And even just to shout out, thinking about in city council now, we have a all women leadership. That has never happened. We have a Black woman speaker, Adrienne Adams, our new majority leader, who is from the Bronx, Afro-Latina, Amanda Farias, and our majority whip, Sylvina Brooke Powers, which is amazing. And it's thinking after 400 years of the city having a city council, never having it led by women and women of color. And so that's what the sisterhood looks about. Like, how are we supporting each other and really building off of all of our qualities, right? We all come in with all these different skills and assets, and we see those assets, and instead of seeing it as a competition, how are we seeing it and supporting each other?
Now, what could this mean for the future generations? And, what could this mean for young, women and girls right now?
I think my hope is for young girls to see women working together. Honestly, I remember coming up and being a young professional, not just in council, but just a young professional, sometimes women weren't nice to me, right? And I don't want that to be another woman's experience, right? How do we make sure that we're not the only one? Sometimes women will get in spaces and feel like they want to be the only one, and that shouldn't be the case. For me, it's like, how am I not only opening the door, but kicking in the door and bringing those folding chairs so everybody can have a seat at the table?
Now, what can we do, or, in what ways do you hope Black Girl Magic Day continues to grow?
I really just hope that it continues to grow across the city, where people could understand. And one, it's every day, right? When we talk about Black History Month, Black history is every day, every month, and all the things. And I want women and women of color, and Black women specifically, to understand you need to celebrate yourself every single day. It is okay for you to not take on the world and take on every burden. When you look at what happened to Professor Gray at Harvard, that was a misfortune, right? And people really trying to discredit a Black woman. And so I think it's for us to make sure, one, how do we support that, and make sure that we counter the things that's being said around plagiarism and all those things. Black women are never given anything. So for someone to say that they're underqualified or things like that, and those are things that are often said about black women like, oh, you're there because of affirmative action. You're there because you're a black woman. You check so many boxes. But the reality is that's never the case. More often than not, we're overqualified in most of the spaces we're in. And when we look at that situation, that was something that was there. And so for me, it's thinking about how do we continue to build a sisterhood? How do we continue to support each other and also celebrate ourselves? And so thinking about each and every day, how are you living in your Black girl magic?
Now, as I mentioned, I believe it's February 15th is going to
February
be
15th is the
Black
official
Girl
day.
Magic Day. What will this celebration consist of?
So yes, I'm really excited. We're going to have our first ever event in Chambers. And so we're going to be honoring a number of Black women across the city that are really doing the work, but not necessarily getting recognized for it, because that's the other thing. I think so often we go to the folks who are always in the spotlight or we see, but there's a lot of women who just kind of do the work quietly and supporting and doing the things that need to get done. And we really want to use this day to really uplift and support them and say, get out those shadows, come in the front, and let everybody know about the Black girl magic that you're really possessing. Because I think that's some of the secret sauce that Black women have. We don't necessarily need the spotlight. We are okay with being in the background, but how do we now bring the work that we're doing to the forefront?
And how can people who are watching just support maybe people who, aren't Black girls? Because I think you don't have to be a Black girl to celebrate and support Black Girl Magic Day. So what can other people do to support, this event?
I think even when I'm thinking about the event and thinking about women, especially Black women and women of color in the background, how are we making sure that we're creating space for them and feeling comfortable to walk into their power and be there? And so thinking about, if there's someone you see working hard, have you acknowledged the work that they've done? Are you uplifting the work that they're doing? Those are the things that we should be and could be doing, but we don't do it enough. And even thinking about men, how are you supporting the women around you, right? How are you being a true ally and making the space for them? Because, they're part of this process as well of making sure that we're supporting women and the way we support them. So really, this is something that's not about being exclusive or just helping a certain group of women. I think this is about celebrating all women.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this really important conversation. And I think it's amazing that we're having something like this and that I was able to speak with you about it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about it.
To learn more about this day, please go to the Councilwoman's website at www.council.nyc.gov/district-16. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Kat from the Kitty Rose Lifestyle, also from The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray every week right here at BronxNet, Saturdays at 11 p.m. Wow, 30 years. 30 years of BronxNet public access television. I'm a girl from Brooklyn and came to the Bronx 25 years ago, started my journey on BronxNet on public access television in 2016, and BronxNet is where I got my start. BronxNet, I feel like, is a home away from home. They support all of my endeavors, and I wouldn't have been able to be on any of the other channels if it wasn't for the fundamentals that I learned right here at my start here at BronxNet. So I am so appreciative. My son says I should stop telling people I'm from Brooklyn because I've been here now, Bronx strong, for 22 years. So I'm so grateful, and I wish you much success in 30 years, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 more, because public access is necessary so that people like myself can have a voice. Yes, BronxNet, it's your girl Kat from Kitty Rose. Check me out every Saturday at 11 p.m. right here, Channel 68, The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Mwah.
Welcome back. Electric vehicles, commonly known as EVs, are often considered one of many solutions to combat climate change. However, if you don't have an EV, you may not be aware of the challenges that come with owning one. Deputy Editor for Special Projects at Consumer Reports, Brian Vines, created an article highlighting these challenges, and he joins us now to discuss. Brian, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Kibin.
Now, just to add some background to the entire situation, can you briefly explain how EVs were introduced as a tool to combat climate change or global warming?
Electric vehicles are something that the president are currently getting very much behind as an idea for bringing down some of the ill effects of gas-powered vehicle emissions. We see the smog across the country from buses and trucks and cars, many of them commuter vehicles. So there's really a lot of science that backs this idea that by reducing some of those emissions, especially from passenger cars, those old cars with the gas combustion engine emitting a bunch of fumes, if we bring EVs to the market, that it will cut down on a lot of that pollution and quell some of the ill effects that we've been experiencing from climate change prompted by some of those emissions. As a matter of fact, the president aims to have half of the vehicles sold and on the roads by 2030 to be electric vehicles because they believe so firmly in their ability to sort of stop some of these ill effects of climate change.
And I'm sure that's maybe, one of many reasons why some may prefer to use an EV over a standard car. But what goes into owning an EV, and how does it differ from the regular cars that we see on our street today?
Well, one of the first concerns that people may have when they're looking at EVs, and one of the starkest differences, is right in your pocketbook. An electric vehicle last year around February, the average price was just over $58,000 to buy an electric car. That's about $13,000 more expensive than the average gas powered car. Now, there have been a few incentives that folks can apply for when getting an EV that can reduce that bill by a few $1,000s. I believe that number is hovering around $7,000 in rebates that the government is offering for folks who are buying EVs. But it's still a bit of sticker shock when you see that you're going to be making an investment in that electric vehicle versus what you would be paying for a traditional gas powered. So, number one, looking at that. And number two, what actually prohibits most people in our Consumer Reports nationally representative survey said the lack of charging infrastructure is their number one reason for delaying or all out not buying an electric vehicle because they're afraid they won't be able to charge it once they get it.
Now, I understand that you also have an article where you kind of fully explore, just some of those challenges. Can you talk a little bit about what sparked your interest and kind of like looking into that?
Well, we all want to do our part, right? And it is just a small part in a larger collective. And we fully recognize that huge corporations who are doing things in the environment and emitting lots of gas have a largely disparate impact over what we as individuals can do. But you still want to feel like you're doing something, right? I bundle Amazon packages when they're coming so I don't get one thing a day. I say, hold on to it, deliver them all at once, save the traffic, save the strain on the environment, carrying my own bag to the grocery store, riding a bike, taking public transit, all these little things that we do. But making the switch to an EV can make a larger impact. So that really is something that folks are considering doing to feel like they're doing their part.
Now, I really want to explore the challenge of charging the car because I think that's maybe one of the biggest challenges that most people have, especially if they live in a major city like New York City. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we are largely apartment dwellers. And even those of us who own homes sometimes don't have, number one, a parking space that's dedicated to us or access to a driveway, and God forbid a garage if you have a garage. So a lot of us find ourselves searching for parking all night long if you do have a car and, again, don't have a garage or a place to keep your car. So charging is a challenge. And that's something we as New Yorkers face more than a lot of folks across the country who have a parking setup or a way to do it. So in New York, even if you have a house, a lot of times our houses may be row houses or you don't have a dedicated parking spot. So it's hard to install those chargers that many folks who are in the suburbs or other places outside of New York do have access to. So that number one challenge is being able to number one, park your vehicle near your home, and number two, be able to charge it while it is parked. But the city has engaged in a 4-year pilot program that's delivering public electronic charging stations right to the city. As a matter of fact, as we sit here right now, there are about 82 public charging stations in the Bronx, and 35 of them actually offer free charging.
Oh, that's amazing. So there is hope out there, is what you're saying.
There's a silver lining, and things are only going to get better because the US government under the Biden administration seems to be all in making EVs a thing. There's about $7.5 billion committed as part of the Infrastructure Investment Act that's going to bring greater, faster charging network of something like 500,000 public level 2 and level 3 chargers to be installed along highways. But what often gets missed is a lot of those chargers are actually earmarked within communities as well. So while most of the media is focusing on, corridors along highways and major byways, they're actually going to be charging stations that are part of that 500,000 new chargers that are coming to communities just like the Bronx.
Now, I think this is amazing that there is something coming, but in the meantime, New Yorkers have been finding more creative solutions to, combat this issue of, charging the car. And we saw in a few pictures that, we see wires going through, the front yard. Can you tell us a little bit more about, that experience and how it could actually be a little bit costly?
Well, those little charging setups, people are getting very creative. We've all seen those wires hanging from the top floor, coming from the basement, out of apartment windows. So there's a lot of that going on. And number one, the thing is safety first. So when you are engaging in getting a charger installed, make sure that you're going to a licensed electrician and someone who is actually qualified to do the work, because there are a lot of folks. Myself personally, I was on Angie's List, and people were just sending me all kinds of proposals, and digging a little bit deeper. A lot of them weren't even licensed electricians. They were just like, oh, I can do this. If you go to an electrician, you're going to pay twice as much. But do your due diligence if you are interested in installing a charger in your home, because that little money you save in the beginning is not going to amount to much if you're blowing out the electric in your building or causing fires or even just burning out your car. So it's worth the investment to invest in people who are actually licensed and know what they're doing and who work within the parameters of the laws of the city of New York. Because some of these charging schemes are dangerous and illegal. So stay within the bounds of the law, and public safety as well as your personal safety is really important.
Now, when it comes to adopting more environmentally friendly options, accessibility and affordability remain a huge concern, often deterring people from making the switch. How does this exacerbate the problem? Or is this something that possibly, if you have more income that you can overlook? I think for many people, being able to afford it is a main concern. So, can you give us a little bit more details about that?
As folks adopt electric vehicles more and more, the prices will come down as the government continues to invest in the infrastructure to power these vehicles and make sure that charging is something that folks have access to, regardless of the socioeconomic status of their neighborhoods. We believe that the price will come down and become more accessible for a wider range of folks. And one of the things that a lot of people who work in the industry are saying is these electronic vehicles may actually lessen the need for individuals to have cars, because technology is moving at such a fast clip that we're fixing the charging problem while technology is already down the road thinking about driverless cars and what it means to have vehicles in communities that are piloting themselves, that don't need to own, that don't need to be privately owned, and can have rates for driving you around that are equal or less than if you had your own private vehicle. So some of the folks I talked to said, we're solving problems we're making solutions for problems that aren't going to be problems in a few years because we're working so far ahead. So between the technology as well as the investment in infrastructure, we may be in a better position than it might look right now.
Now, as mentioned, owning an EV is an investment, but for those who may not be ready to make the switch or may not have, the resources to make the switch, what can New Yorkers do to make changes to their daily lives that will still, kind of result in just being a little bit more environmentally conscious?
By and large, New Yorkers are already ahead of the curve at the curve. They're already ahead of the curve over a lot of folks across the country. We take public transportation. The lifeblood of the city is that train, and most of us are on trains and buses, and that is a huge part of why this city is environmentally sound. It's also one of the reasons why electronic vehicles makes so much sense for cities because our commutes are generally shorter and the charges last longer, and we don't need to drive as far as folks who do live in the suburbs and drive to the grocery store, they drive to work, they drive to the mall, they drive all of these places where we by and large walk. So continue to rate you are and use public transportation. We keep things local, shopping local, doing all sorts of things just with the consciousness of being less of an impact on the environment, whether it is, like I said, having your packages bundled when you're getting an Amazon delivery, or taking bags to the grocery store, taking advantage of the curbside recycling, and now the composting that we also have in the city. So there are a lot of products and plans in play that we just need to take full advantage of.
And what do you hope to see for the future of EVs in cities like New York City?
What I hope is for more holistic plans for transportation, and EVs may be a part of that, but we have to continue to build and maintain a robust public transportation as well as public charging network because it's all part of one package. We don't all need cars, but we all need to get where we're going. And if we can do that in a safe, affordable, equitable way for all New Yorkers, that's really the path forward.
Well, Brian, I want to thank you so much for joining us and educating me and our community about EVs and just ways we could be a little bit more environmentally conscious.
Thanks, Kibin. Be careful out there.
If you would like to learn more about this report, you can find the full story on their website at www.cr.org. Stay tuned, we have more open for you right after this.
Congratulations to BronxNet on its 30th anniversary. And I'm blessed that I was here shortly after the beginning of BronxNet. At that time, I took the field and studio classes, and I spent a lot of time helping other people have shows before I put my toe in the water and decided to have a show for myself. For those of you who are familiar with the Blackwash Televised Art Gallery, that was my first show on my own. And now I am pumping up La Finca del Sur, doing Eating Healthy with La Finca del Sur on BronxNet's Channel 70. And I appreciate everyone watching.
Welcome back. The First Tech Fund aims to uplift low-income New York City students in underrepresented communities through a one-year leadership enrichment program. The program provides free tech access, mentors, and more. Co-founder and the CEO of the organization, Josue De Paz, and Alumni Success Coordinator Celine Paulino join me to discuss the program and how they use mentorship to connect with students. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Now, as founder or co-founder, can you explain how the First Tech Fund began?
Of course, so the organization started in 2020 at the height of the pandemic, and really it was a culmination of both the professional experiences I had, but also the personal experiences that I had growing up. I grew up not only low income, but in a single parent household, and I also grew up undocumented. And so for me, the journey to college, the journey to the workforce was really challenging, and I didn't always feel supported. And so once I was able to break into the corporate sector, once I was able to understand how these systems worked, how they operated, I really wanted to make sure to give back to the community and help others who possess the talent but don't always have the resources or the opportunity to be successful.
And I'm so glad that you shared that and kind of like, put another layer, because there's so many layers as to why children or, students in New York City feel that they, possibly can't reach their fullest potential. What are some other barriers New York City students face that make these resources available necessary?
Yeah, I think for a lot of students, the information gap exists where they might be first generation, they might not have a parent or a sibling who's gone to college, so doing the college process or figuring out the scholarships or financial aid can be really challenging. And so if you're missing any of those key pieces of information, you can be left behind, even if you have the talent and the work ethic to be successful. And so for us, we really just try to be a community of support, a community of resources. We try to connect our students not only to free technology and laptops, but also Wi-Fi, the mentors, like you said, but also information about what pathways exist for college and also what pathways exist for careers.
Now, I think this is so exciting, especially for this generation where we always talk about how technology, is affecting our students. How do your organization use technology to address some of these challenges and actually put, younger generations at the forefront?
Yeah, so not only do we provide technology, but we also try to help students understand the best ways to leverage that technology, right? From thinking about what platforms they can use to find internships like LinkedIn, helping them update those profiles, to also helping them take their first professional headshot, just really trying to find ways for us to use technology to bring forward the skills and talents they have. And help them find those 21st century opportunities that exist and that are the careers of tomorrow that we hope New York City students are able to partake in.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the weekly learning opportunities?
Yeah, of course. So every week we send out a newsletter. It's just a quick email to the students where we list any opportunities that are happening within New York City that will help them and anything that they're interested in. So we also include scholarships, it may be internships, jobs, anything that we think they would benefit from having access to. And so we really make it a point to do the research a bit for them, so that way it's a lot easier for them to just look into it, apply, and it may be introducing them to things that they would never really think about bumping into or looking at.
And how do you prioritize mentorship in the program, and how does that work?
Thank you.
Yeah, so we really try to make sure that we are really specific with students about what it is that they want to learn, and then try to connect them with a mentor who fits in that space. So rather than trying to fit what is the phrase, a square peg in a round hole, we really try to customize the experience for every student. So if you one day want to work in healthcare, we try to find you a mentor in healthcare. If you want to work in finance, a mentor in finance, et cetera, et cetera. So we really try to make sure that we take each individual student, understand what their dreams and goals and aspirations are, and then really try to find them someone who fits within that future pathway.
Now, you said something that I just thought was so interesting, and that it could range from healthcare to business. How do you kind of work with these students who have varying different ideas of what they want to be in the future, and find somebody that they connect with through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just really lucky in that we have really great partners. We've been able to partner with great companies like Snapchat, MasterCard, and so we have a really great network of organizations that provide us with mentors. But we're also very fortunate that we have support from organizations like New Schools Venture Fund, who are really helping us to scale up the resources that we have, the staff that we have, to offer more mentors, more companies, so that our students really are able to get that specific expertise that they're looking for.
Now, Celine, through your role as Alumni Success Coordinator, you're assisting with the creation of the Dual Impact Internship Program. Can you tell me a little bit more about that initiative?
Yeah, so our first part of our program is the one-year fellowship where students come in as high school students. Right now we're accepting 11th and 12th graders. And so that first part is really getting them access to college and those college readiness opportunities. But once they graduate from the one-year fellowship, they become what we consider alumni. And so we really make it a point to say to our alumni that they are still part of the First Tech Fund community, and we're still there to support them in any endeavors that they have, especially, again, just reiterating, a lot of our fellows and our alumni are first-generation college students. So even getting them into college that first year, they do need that extra support that a lot of their peers may have. And so one of those things that we do for our alumni is the Dual Impact Internship Program. So with that, we hope to give our alumni their first workforce experience in something that's outside of customer service, or maybe not a job that they had during their time in high school, but more into that corporate world or healthcare, anything that they're necessarily interested in. So that, again, we give them that step in, it adds something to their resume, and we kind of equal that playing field with their peers who have a lot more resources or privileges.
Now, can you actually expand on that a little bit more? Because I think for so many people, especially from lower income communities, a lot of our first jobs are maybe like working in retail or things that, not that they're, there's nothing wrong with it, but as far as career-wise, there's not a lot of longevity and growth in those type of roles. So can you explain, also maybe why you wanted to highlight, careers that are just have a little bit more growth and longevity in them?
Yeah, of course. Just from my own personal experience, I was born and raised in the Bronx. I come from a low-income family. My parents were both immigrants. So I was one of those students who didn't have access to the same resources. And I grew up around people in my peers, high school. We all had the same type of experience where we were just trying to work to survive in that sense. It was only once I got to college and I really looked around to my peers who had more privilege than I did, that I really realized, like, oh, someone is working an internship with their parents who are in some hospital, or their parents are lawyers, so they get that first experience. And so that workforce experience really changes how you interview. It really changes, again, like you were saying, the career ladder for them. A lot of times they don't know what they're really interested in because their only experiences are in those customer service roles or those things, retail. And so it's just really important that they're able to explore those areas, kind of get that experience and expertise, so that once they do finally find what they're interested in, they're able to move on up and they have had that practice.
Now, what are the requirements for becoming part of the program?
Yeah, so for us, we try to be as open and inclusive as possible. So we don't have a GPA requirement, there's no immigration requirement. Anyone in 11th or 12th grade can apply. We just have a couple quick essays that students do, and then we have a blinded process. So when we're reviewing information, the reviewers can't see your name or your borough or your gender. They're really just seeing kind of like the essays and the effort that you put forward to just be as equitable as possible. And so those are really the only requirements. We're just looking for students who are excited about the future, who want and have that desire to learn and desire to grow. We're not looking for 4.0 students necessarily, though. If you have a 4.0, that's not a problem either.
But it opens so many doors for so many children, because I know that for a lot of people who want to be a part of programs like this, they'll see like a GPA and it'll discourage them. So when I first saw that, I was amazed that that was something that was a part of this program, and I thought it was amazing. So I mean, I'm not a student, but I would say thank you on behalf of so many students that were want to be great, but they feel like they have to be already great for for them to be a part of a program like this. Now, when does enrollment begin, and what can people do to kind of sign up?
Yeah, so enrollment has actually already started. We had our launch on January 8th. So we have our applications open on our website if you just go to firsttechfund.com. We also have a newsletter, and yeah, it's just a quick link. You click, you apply, and our applications are going to be rolling through, and we'll let you know once we're going through the process.
Now, what can students and their families do to ensure that they get the most out of this program?
Yeah, I think it's really about the time that you invest, right? We have a ton of different types of sessions, so anywhere from how to write the college essay to how financial aid works to how to interview for your first job. We have information about careers, and then we also do partnerships with corporate partners where you actually get to go to their offices and see what life is like at one of these companies, but you can't learn if you don't show up, right? So we are really looking for students who are ready to commit, who really have those goals in mind that they want to accomplish. Because once we figure out with the students what it is that they want to accomplish, then we can surround them with the right resources to get them from where they're at to the dreams that they would like to achieve one day.
And we're just about to, end the interview, but, could you quickly give, as you work closely with students, can you just give them any advice on, what they should do just to ensure that they are successful as well in the program?
Yeah, I think it's very important to believe in yourself. It's really easy to feel like that imposter syndrome and think that you're not where you belong, but it's just as you work just as hard as anyone else around you, and as long as Josue was saying, you put that time and effort in, then wherever you end up, I'm sure you belong there, and if you're putting your best foot forward, then that's all anyone could ever ask of you.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us and having this conversation. I think it's important, especially in boroughs like the Bronx, that students just know that programs like this exist and that there are people there to support them. So I appreciate you both so much, for joining us and having this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
If you or someone you know may be interested in learning more about this program, please go to www.firsttechfund.com. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
Happy anniversary to BronxNet 30 years. Wow, brings back so many memories. This exact studio that I'm in right now, I broadcast out of here. This must have been around 2003. I mean, time flies by so quickly. I started out here, it was either Mr. Gary Axelbank and Mr. Batch with Lady Morsar. We used to do a show here called In the Neighborhood. And I brought so many different guests on this show. To be able to bring your voice to the community is very powerful. To bring hip hop and spirituality, I brought my pastor in this same studio, Pastor Gino Jennings, and I'm sure you guys know who Pastor Gino Jennings is. That's rough. And some disciplined teaching. BronxNet is something that we need to uplift our communities, because this is a platform that we can come, and if you have a vision that's in your mind going into your heart, you can use it to do uplifting things for your community.
Welcome back. The organization Girls Right Now inspires and empowers young women, girls, and gender-expansive youth to find their voices and become agents of change in their communities. Girls Right Now achieves this all while offering support by a diverse community of like-minded individuals and mentors. Community Manager Emily Rigby and Senior Community Marketing Manager Vahni Kurra joined me to discuss the program. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Now, can you just explain the overall mission of Girls Right Now?
Yeah, Girls Right Now's mission is really to break down the barriers of gender, race, age, and poverty to mentor the next generation of writers and leaders. Together, our community channels the power of their stories and their voices to shape culture, impact industry, and hopefully inspire change.
Now, a current theme for Girls Right Now is radical gratitude, which I think sounds really cool. Can you explain, what this means for the organization?
Yeah, definitely. So this is actually our 25th anniversary year. And so we knew we wanted to do something special, and Radical Gratitude is really the essence of what it is like to be at Girls Right Now. One of the biggest lessons we've learned from mentoring for so long is that none of us gets here alone. We get here because of the people in our lives who support us and believe in us. So we want to use this year to thank our mentors who have contributed so generously their time and their energy to mentor and volunteer. We want to thank our mentees who show up every day with their bold and authentic voices to tell stories that really do change lives. And we want to thank our partner organizations, our alumni who continue to come back and support us, and really everybody who's picked up a book we've published or who has come to an event, and to really show our gratitude.
And in what ways are you honoring the theme and showing gratitude? So, like what are maybe some of the events that you're having or some of the programs that you're hosting to kind of really show radical gratitude?
Definitely. So this year we're really excited to announce that we are releasing a special book from Harper One. It will be out on April 2nd. It's called Girls Right Now on the Art of the Craft, a guidebook to collaborative storytelling. And so the project with that is we went back into our archive of 25 years of young women and gender expansive youth writing their stories, and we had our current mentees select stories from that group. They then wrote responses to those stories and also writing prompts to go with it, and we put that all into one book. And we call it a guidebook because we really want people to take inspiration from these stories and write their own. And so to really pass on those lessons that people have learned in mentorship and to continue the practice of storytelling. We're also having an event on April 12th. It is at the Stavros Niarchos building at the New York Public Library. It's on the rooftop terrace, so it'll be really fun. And we're going to have mentees reading their work. We're going to invite everybody from the community, so everyone can come on down, everyone can have this really beautiful moment to express their gratitude, to create together. And really that's what Girls Right Now is about, so I'm very excited for it.
Now, there's a huge effort to create a culturally and educationally diverse community. What does the organization do to ensure that they're creating this safe space?
Yeah, we work really hard on our kind of recruitment and application process to make sure that our community is really diverse and representative of a lot of different backgrounds and ideas. And the way we do that, we have all of our mentees and our mentors apply to be a part of Girls Right Now, and then each one of them is interviewed by a Girls Right Now staff member, and they're asked about their goals and their interests for sure, but also we really get into questions about what underrepresentation means to each individual as they're joining. It's really important that everyone at Girls Right Now understands that underrepresented communities are not underrepresented by accident, right? That those communities are systematically silenced and not offered representation, right? So we really want to make sure that everyone in our community understands that diversity needs to be intentional and chosen, and that is the way that we move forward and grow together.
Now, I also want to add that the organization includes trans and gender expansive youth and young adults. Why was that so important to kind of, add a space for, people from that community as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So trans and gender expansive young people have always been a part of Girls Right Now's community. But when our organization was founded 25 years ago by our founder, Maya Nussbaum, there was a sort of disparity in the publishing industry and media creation that was really only being talked about in a male-female dichotomy, right? And so we wanted to, over the past 25 years, really acknowledge that the conversation around gender has changed and grown, and that now we understand that there are many, many groups that are discriminated based on their gender. That includes cis women, trans men, gender expansive individuals, non-binary individuals, a lot of different groups are systematically not given space at the table. And so we want to make sure that at Girls Right Now, they are given space.
And I kind of want to expand on that. What are some of the challenges young girls and gender expansive people of color face, just in this realm, whether it be education, opportunities to grow? Can you just talk a little bit more about that, especially, I guess, how it relates to youth? Because I think we hear a lot about it, maybe in the workplace or, adults, but how does it affect youth as well?
Yeah, so the CDC recently released a series of reports saying that young women and gender expansive youth are facing the highest levels of mental health issues than they have in decades. And that is really the result of many things. We know firsthand from talking to our mentees that they face discrimination based on their race, based on their gender, that they face prejudice, that they face sexual violence. And also the results of the COVID-19 pandemic have meant that a lot of people are feeling more isolated than before. And so that has led to a lot of mental health struggles. And really, how can we expect people to learn in school, to express themselves fully and authentically if they don't have the energy to do that mentally or physically? So I would say mental health is really a huge part of the challenges facing our youth. I would also say that teenagers, college-age students also want to be heard, they want to be seen, and they want to feel represented. And especially for young people of color, that is not always a given. Our media is not really up to date with the population that is consuming that media and that is creating that media. So we want to make sure that those things actually match up.
Now, how is your organization using writing to address this? And, I also want to add, in what ways could it be healing, for a lot of these young people?
Yeah, that's a really huge point that we've realized over the years. Writing is a tool for education, yes. It's a tool for career advancement, yes. But it's also a tool for healing, and it's also a tool for wellness. So even anecdotally, just hearing from our mentees, I know one mentee who recently lost 5 family members due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And she told me that her mentor was like her North Star, that she was the person who guided her through this grief. And a lot of that guidance was through their one-on-one mentoring sessions where they would write about their emotions. They would write about the grief that she was experiencing. And it really allowed her to see a path forward. So yes, I do think anecdotally, but also in the evidence that we have, we survey our students, and every year they experience a positive increase in self-esteem, a positive increase in social skills, and they also tell us that they really have gained a lot. And we call it Writing Our Way to Wellness, which is actually the name of one of our podcasts that we run, where wellness advisors talk to our mentors and our mentees about different subjects related to wellness and how writing can actually be a tool for processing.
Now, what are some learning methods or techniques Girls Right Now uses to empower marginalized youth? And I also kind of want to focus on the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of the time people from marginalized youth, go to schools where they're not always given the most resources to, excel in, areas of like writing. So, how do you use that to empower them and maybe not use that as a tool to like make them aware that they may be in some ways disadvantaged, especially when it comes to learning?
Yeah. So learning at Girls Right Now really takes kind of 3 main buckets. We have our community, our curriculum, and then mentorship. And so within community, we have monthly small group meetings that we call studios, where mentees and mentors come and they talk about writing together. They select a certain genre they want to discuss together. They share writing with each other. It's a really nice kind of back and forth. And then in terms of curriculum, we get into a lot of the skill sets here. So we have live events that mentees can attend if they would like to learn from professionals live on the spot, or we also have an online curriculum that mentees can move through at their own pace at the time that makes sense to them. It's really important for us to work in flexibility into all of the things that we do so that any mentee from anywhere with any kind of schedule can access the things that they need to. And then finally, we have mentorship, which we've talked a bit about, but our mentors work one-on-one with our mentees. They have pair sessions, usually multiple sessions every month with each other, kind of talking about writing, absolutely, but also about life and about what's going on in their day-to-day and how that mentor can help them achieve whatever goals they have set for themselves, whether that is within the writing creative sphere, in their careers, or just in their life in general.
Now, because the organization has such a wide array of like just people that are included, how do you find the right mentor, for the right participant?
Yeah, so we take a lot of time to make sure that we are matching mentors with our mentees in a really just human way. There's no automation, there's no computer that does it, and we take all of the information that we have on our mentees and mentors from their application, their interviews, from their writing samples, everything that we have about them, and then we go through our community team individually matches each mentee with a mentor, looking at a few different aspects, looking at geography. We are nationals, we have mentors and mentees all over the country, so making sure that they are at least somewhat close to each other so they can meet up in person. We look at age, making sure that we're not matching a 24 mentee with a 25-year-old mentor. We want them to be a little bit separate in terms of their generations, so we look at that. And then of course we look at their interests, what they like to do, what they like to write. Maybe they both mention that they like the same TV show, and so we're like, maybe they'll bond over that. It's about trying to find a point of connection that mentee and mentor can use to then grow a really fantastic relationship.
Now, for my last question, Vahni, this has been an ongoing journey for 25 years, as you mentioned, which, by the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
How has your organization evolved to reflect the young women and girls of today? And, possibly what could that look like for the future?
That is a great question. Yeah, I think, well, as Emily had mentioned before, really recognizing the wide diversity of experiences that our mentees are bringing. So understanding that there are gender expansive individuals in our community, understanding the things that excite them also. I think, sometimes we talk a lot about the challenges that young people face, but I think one of the most amazing things is getting to see the optimism and the excitement for creativity that a lot of young people are bringing. We have so many mentees who are engaged in social activism and who are really passionate about issues like climate change, about racial disparity, about addressing economic and educational inequality, and using writing as a tool to actually do that. We also have so many people who are interested in telling stories that no one has ever told before, and making sure that everybody sees themselves in the books that they read and the movies that they watch. Because if you can see it, you can be it, and that is so much of what mentorship is about, having somebody to look up to and say, I could be a journalist like them, I could be a helpful and contributing person like this mentor that I have. So I think that in so many ways we are responsive to the culture. We're always thinking about our mentees, talking to them about what they want to see, and that's how we move forward.
And I also want to add that I think it's amazing that it's also like validating a lot of their experiences, because I think that when people think of like older generations versus younger generations, there's a lot of headbutting and people maybe not validating what they're experiencing. And I think that it's so amazing that there is like a space for kids, young adults to kind of go and kind of share a little bit of their soul, and a lot of this stuff can be vulnerable because we're talking about marginalized communities. So I think that this is amazing. I'm so glad that you both, were able to join us and have this conversation. So I definitely want to say thank you and just keep up the amazing work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To learn more about the amazing work that Girls Right Now does, please go to their website at www.girlsrightnow.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the Recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Files Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Hemick on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.